This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by Alfred Music. You're listening to the Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. Well, hello teachers, it's Tim Topham here, and thank you for joining me again for another episode of the Topcast. If you haven't met me before, I'm a teacher of about, well over 20 years experience now, both in the classroom and also in the studio, and I'm based down here in Melbourne, Australia. And we are actually just heading into springtime now with summer around the corner. Very, very exciting time. But I know that for a lot of you in the Northern Hemisphere, this is actually moving into winter and the end of summer. So I do hope you had a great time if you've had a summer break and you're excited to get back into the studio and school. And I know that this is a really exciting time for lots of people as we get started with the new academic year in the Northern Hemisphere. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, thank you so much for tuning in and joining me this episode. It's a little bit of a shorter episode. We have a lot of content here at Top Music, as you know, even just on the non-member side of things. We have blogs and podcasts, a number over 1,000 items alone, if you can believe it. I mean, we're almost up to 400 podcasts and there's about 500, 600 blog articles, plus, of course, the magazine. I mean, there is so much stuff out there. So what I find is sometimes when I'm going back through our archives or I'm trying to find something, I come across a little gem that can so easily get lost as we create new things. And today I want to share one of those from 2020. It's back when I ran my first live event. It was called Piano Pivot Live in Melbourne. And I imagine that some of you listening were lucky enough to come down to Melbourne for that event. It's still something that lots of you talk about, and it was very, very exciting to put on. One of the short segments we ran was a chance for Nicola who'd flown over from Ireland to present at the conference, to interview me on stage. And so that's what we're going to listen to today. In this, I talk about my past, some of those childhood lessons with Miss Mac and at school, and how I got into improvising and creativity and the genesis of some of my key beliefs and lots more. And if you'd like to watch the video of this interview from our 3-camera setup and the crowd reaction, all of that kind of stuff, you can access this inside our Top Music Pro Academy on our studio plan. So if you're not already a member, head over to topmusicpro.com and we'll put a link to this recording in the show notes so you can just click it through if you are a member. So the person interviewing me, Nicola, I'm sure needs no introduction here on this show. She's a piano teacher, author, blogger and creator of imaginative and engaging teaching resources over at Vibrant Music Teaching. She loves getting piano students involved through laughter and exploring the diverse world of music making through improv, composition and games. Here is my fireside chat with the amazing Nicola from Piano Pivot Live. I'm going to welcome Nicola back to the stage for a little bit of a fireside chat again. Come on up, Nicola, with me. So she's going to ask me some questions. So this is an open session. And if you've got any questions that you'd like Nicola to ask me, jump on Slido.
So I'll get us started, but you guys add in your own questions, of course. So I've penned a couple that I think maybe people will be interested in, things that I don't know the answer to. So I thought I'd start off by talking about your first teacher, Miss Mac, who you talked about at the start. And I was wondering if you could imagine or guess what would have happened if you had a different teacher. Do you think you'd still be playing?
If the teacher was more rigid, classical.
Yeah, like not mean, but just straightforward traditional lessons. Would you still be playing?
No. I know that for a fact. I would not be here. There's no doubt, because I actually wasn't a very good student, I have to admit. I was a bit of a shit, to be honest. Excuse my language. Because I hated performing in front of people, and so I would do everything to get out of it. And she knew the value of exams, but she didn't force me to do every single one of them. So I did a grade 1. I can't remember how old I was. I started with her at grade 8. I was 8 years old. And I did grade 6 was my next exam, and that I did when I was 12. So in those 4 years, she got me through, but she didn't force me to go exam. And in that time, she taught me all these pieces that I wanted to learn. That because I went to Starlight Express with my dad, so I wanted to learn one of those pieces, and I went and heard something on the radio, and I wanted to learn that. If I didn't have that, I would have quit for sure. So I can say that 100%.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so passionate about helping all of us and as many teachers in the world as possible not be that traditional teacher, because we lose so many students, and my passion, my mission is to keep as many students in the world playing music as possible, not just piano, but any kind of involvement in music education. It's so meaningful. We all know the power of it. Anita knows the power of it. I've felt it my whole life. So I only want to pass that on and help the world be more musical.
So with that in mind, obviously Miss Mac was open to you learning different types of pieces and all of that, and you probably came to her with requests.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do we do with the students who won't give us a request? The students who say they want to learn pop, but they literally will not tell you what they want to learn. Have you had that student?
I have, yeah, absolutely. And there are students, people are nodding, yeah. There are also students who you would love to do some improv with who don't want to do it or are too shy. People have that as well if you've tried improvising. So yes, we'll take those two separately. So the students who don't bring anything into lessons, that's totally okay, because if you've got a wide-ranging repertoire, and one thing piano teachers are not short of is repertoire. We have so much music at our disposal. Then share with them more and more music of different genres. You can also bring in any of these improvising ideas and see how they approach things. For students that are reluctant with improvising, I tend to do lots of playing along with them. Call and answer as well. So to have someone like Tim come up, if he was a little bit shy, I could do da bum 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 and then go to him, and he could copy me to start with, or he could then give a response that's not the same as what I've given him. So call and response is great, and just keeping the notes that they improvise with as few as possible. And I remember Christopher Norton once telling me that he gets students to do just one note, just that note. Just improvise with that note.
Oh, yeah,
it's an improvisation.
Make it as interesting as you can.
Yeah, that's right.
I like giving them that challenge.
Yeah. So, but there will be students who you can do everything you want with, all the pop music, everything that you think they would love, and they may not like it, and they may just want to play the classical music. And that's great. That's fine. As long as they've been exposed to it, I think that's the most important thing. Like you said, be prepared to open all the doors, even if you're not a specialist in one of those things.
Right, and even if they don't take the option, it's there.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Did you always improvise yourself?
Yeah.
Like you were playing a wide variety of music, but did you actually improvise?
Yeah, I did, because I've actually got some of my little compositions that I wrote, these little one-line things, and I found them not long ago. So I was making things up on the piano at quite an early stage. And the other thing that really made me enjoy creating at the piano was getting a keyboard. And I've always loved digital things. Actually, they're all they're almost like valves. When I started these keyboards, I remember I always liked Ensoniq. Has anyone heard of Ensoniq brand keyboards? They've been taken over by Roland. They don't exist anymore. They're now classed as what do you call it? Antique, but just about. This thing had wooden sides, and you could unscrew the top and open up this thing. I used to love looking inside at all the electronics and how does it all work. And I remember getting my first one of those, and my parents bought it for me, and I would just compose. I'd put on all the weird sounds and just make up film scores and things like that. So I was doing it from quite a young age, but it was the keyboard that I think was the catalyst for a lot of that. I just really enjoyed playing around with different sounds and recording things and layering them.
So did you teach improv right from the start?
No.
When you started teaching?
No.
Or were you more traditional at the beginning?
Yeah. I taught how Miss Mac taught me. And she was using John Thompson. Still a great seller. Amazing. So, and it was literally like, minimums on C, that was your first piece. It worked for me. But I started teaching like that, but I soon realised that just didn't suit how I taught, and I didn't think it was having the connection. So that's when I started looking into, let's play some blues instead of doing this after a few lessons. So, yeah.
Do you remember the first lesson that you tried it in? Just for the teachers they literally haven't tried it and they're feeling like terrified.
To be honest, no, I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure it would have been something with the blues scale, because I've always known that is just such an easy inroad to sounding cool at the piano.
We had a question from someone, they're all anonymous, I wish people would write their names, but they said, Tim, what if we get parents who feel playing improv slows down the rate of completing a piece and would rather us focus on just learning to play the piece? So I think particularly they're referencing the music mashups.
Well, I would say to that parent, would you like your student, your child, to be a lifelong lover of music? Or do you just want them to pass the next exam and see what they say? Now, and that's a little bit confronting, but it's kind of true. It's like you either get on the exam express, as Elisa Milne calls it, and you go bang, bang, bang through all the exams, and kids are just literally barely hanging on with technical ability by the time they get to grade 4 and 5, and you're having a horrible time and then they quit anyway. Or you give some time to these other pursuits, the bottom of the iceberg stuff, and they understand music more. They have an ability to then go, oh, maybe I can play in that school band, or maybe I'll get my mate Carly over who's going to sing and I'll play some piano. Things like that start emerging, but it doesn't happen if all you do is focus on reading the music and playing it and doing exams. And I know it's easier for me to say, I guess, because people only send their students to me because they know what I do, and I love taking on transition students and transfer students who are about to quit and all this kind of stuff. For many of you, you will have parents who are absolutely fixed on exams. And I have an open letter that I wrote some time ago. It's online. Open letter to parents of piano students about this very topic, which you're welcome to share with them, and hopefully that can help. Have a read of it yourself, and if you agree with it, it might be something you can pass on to the parents. And I would also say, just as a final thing to that, if you're finding that those parents aren't getting the message and it conflicts with your own personal views about what music education should be, then maybe that's the wrong family for you.
Alfred Music's piano resources have long been favourites of piano teachers and students alike, with a vast catalogue of popular methods, supplemental repertoire, masterworks, pop and more. This fall, Alfred Music is excited to continue its legacy of producing first-class piano resources with the release of 4 brand new books. For video game-loving students, Saga Land, video game-inspired solos by Elizabeth Swift for intermediate students that is sure to spark the imagination and excite all of your students. Sand Paintings, 16 piano pieces by the amazing Connor Chi, inspired by traditional Navajo sand paintings. Take the Stage, recital showstoppers for young beginners by Angela Marshall, and Rare Recital Treasures, an anthology of lesser-known teaching pieces selected and edited by Ingrid Clarfield and Kevin Chance. Exclusively for Topcast listeners, go to alfred.com/podcast and use the code TOPMUSIC at checkout to save 30% on these titles and everything else at alfred.com. Go check it out.
Absolutely. There was another question about the music mashup specifically before we move on. Vicky said, at what age would you start this? Could you do it with lagging teenagers? So students who've never done that kind of work before?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And pretty much any student who's playing a written piece of music, you can do this with. Yeah. And just adjust it to suit the age level of the student. So a 7 or 8 year old playing one of those preliminary pieces, the Christopher Norton, maybe they are only just doing a couple of notes in the right hand before they try and do a whole blues scale. But maybe a teenager can play a whole blues scale quite easily in a week, and you can go crazy with the idea.
Yeah, fantastic. We've had a few questions coming through about business in general, and I have one for you.
Sure.
Which is, because I know you're listening to podcasts and reading a wide variety of books on business. So is there any particular lesson that you've learned from the wider business world that you think applies to teachers in their studios?
Yes. I think the world of online marketing, which is the world of finding things online and then choosing to make a purchasing decision, we can learn a lot from in all our studios. And so the real focus of that, I guess, is having a website that has one purpose, and that's to convert people from a passive viewer, like in Nicolas funnels, to someone taking a trial. And I've learned a lot about that in my business online. So when any of you, if you're not already a Top Music Pro member, if you download one of my resources and give me your email address, you'll go into the top of my funnel.
Yeah.
And then you'll get some more emails from me, which might give you a few more things. And then eventually I hope that you'll go, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. This Top Music Pro looks good. I might join up. And so that's my funnel. And I think we can all take a lesson from that in our studios, in that we're all getting parents hopefully looking at our website. If you don't have a website, take Philip Johnson's advice and get one. Seeing your website, hopefully they're then clicking a button that says, find out more, enroll in trial lesson, something like that, a call to action, we call it. And then that's getting their email. And you don't even have to then phone people. There is plenty of software and free software that can then email them for you. So it can send an automatic email. Thanks for coming to the website. So delighted that insert daughter, son's name is keen to learn instrument. Click here to book a time on my calendar. And make sure you read this or watch this video because it tells you what our vibe is in this studio, kind of thing. All that can be done with technology, and that's something that I've learned from the online business world.
Yeah, absolutely. In a similar area, Michael asked, out of all the entrepreneurial ventures you've had, why did you come back to music? I think referring to your presentation yesterday.
Yes. So those that didn't see my presentation last night, I showed you all my kind of business cards from when I was about 18 or 15 or whatever it was. Music's always been a strong part of my life. So I did go away from music for about 10 years. I studied music at university, which was audio engineering, actually. That was my degree. It wasn't actually performance or composition or anything like that. And then I got really stuck into outdoor education and PE. That was what I wanted to do. I did it for 10 years, basically. And then I eventually came back to it. But all through that period of time, I was doing what I could only do with the knowledge that someone like Miss Mac had given me, and some jazz lessons too, which was I was playing jazz and musical theatre songs and people were singing with me. And that kept me going all that time. So I had these great friends who were incredible singers. We'd get together, have some wine, and I'd play and they'd sing, and it would just be, traditional piano party, really great fun. And that kept me going through that time. And then eventually, as I mentioned, I got back into music production and then finally back into music teaching, but it's always been there. And so it made perfect sense when my blog started building traction that I realised that this could be a business, but I had no idea at the start that it would end up like this.
Yeah. Awesome. So back into the teaching world then, we had a question, sort of a more general question really. How do you manage your time with family, piano teaching, blogging? So how are you balancing it basically?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Yeah. I try, and so we've got two kids at home, and I try and structure my time so that after they've gone to school, I start working, and by the time they get home from school, I'm back with them and kind of off duty. Doesn't always work quite that way, but I try my hardest to do that. So I've really got about 6 hours of quality work time during the day, and they are very good at stopping. When they see me at the computer on the weekend, they're like, no, get off, stop working. So that's been really good. I'm really focused on tasks and goals. So every day and every week, I try and decide what my top 3 things I've got to achieve that week are. I think you might do something similar. There's certainly other models like this. What are my top 3 things for this week? What have I got to do today? And just get it done.
Just do it.
And look, sometimes, you know what? It doesn't work and I don't achieve anything. And it's really frustrating. But you just go, you know what? That's okay. There's always tomorrow. So just being I'm super organised, goal-driven and focused. And just trying to set aside that time for family versus work.
Can you describe your journey and your evolution from a regular teacher to getting into coaching, organising podcasts, events, and personal branding?
Great question. Is that anonymous?
Yeah.
We
can't blame anyone.
It was really organic, actually. So I started writing the blog in 2010. I remember that, and I showed some people some images of this hideous, awful site that I started when I began. It started getting traction, and what I found from that blog, and this is what I teach in Music Teacher Startup, the course that I have for other teachers, I found after building that audience and then asking them, what can I help you with? What do you need? What's the biggest struggle that you've got at the moment? I found that so many teachers were asking me about pop music teaching. I've got a student who wants to learn pop, I've got no idea what to do, help me. Or this kid's about to quit, all he wants to do is YouTube, what do I do? So those questions kept coming up again and again and again, and I thought, right, I need to create something. So that's when I created a course called Piano Flicks, Teaching Pop Piano. That was the first thing I'd ever tried to sell online, and that was at the end of 2014, right at about New Year's Eve kind of time. And that sold really well. So the skills that I'd started learning about by listening to podcasts and reading blogs and books enabled me to sell that. That went very well. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, now I'm getting lots of emails, personal questions about all this teaching.
Yeah.
I can't answer them all. I need a forum in which to do this. People that need more support, could I create a membership for them? And so that's when I put that together. And so with the membership started in 2016, that enabled me to then look at other ways that I could help coach teachers and then help with the branding and things like that. But look, I've learned all this on the go. I did study business, but it was so long ago it's completely irrelevant. Literally, I have an MBA, but everything has changed so much. So I learned pretty much everything about what I do now from blogs and podcasts and reading books. And a lot of, who was talking about trial and fail? It was Carly, wasn't it? Yeah, lots and lots of that. There's been lots of things I've done which haven't worked, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future, but that's part of the journey and part of the excitement of entrepreneurship, I guess. I hope that kind of answered the question.
I think you did a good job of describing your entire life.
So there was a 10 video module course. I recorded it all in and edited it all myself in 3 weeks of the September school holidays. I just went crazy and did it all.
Locked yourself up,
So I had a package. I then built the website in that next term 4, it was a very busy term, in which to sell it. And the full price was $129 US, but it launched at $69 or $79. So the bulk of the amount was about that. And I had affiliates who also promoted it, and they took a little 10% cut. That was a great way to get the word out around the world as well. And I think, I'm happy to say it did. I think by the time I closed it, which it was open for about a year, and I closed it before I launched the membership, it had made $30,000 in revenue. But it did take a lot of, obviously a lot of work, but a lot of pushing it and reopening it and new promotions and things like that. But it just shows that that's something that you can achieve with the right audience who really needs something from you. If you've got that skill to fulfill that need for those people and support them in that struggle, then people will be happy to have that problem solved for them. And this is all stuff I teach in Music Teacher Startup, and there's a page in your playbooks about it. If you are interested in this, I've got a full course about how I created what I've been able to create.
I'm going to pick out one question to finish, because I think this one would be good to finish on, which is, what is your most valuable piece of wisdom for a teacher just starting their journey?
I think it would be, could I do a couple? It has to be flexible and keep learning. They're the 2 things. And I think if you can do those 2 things, you will be a teacher that can teach any student, and you'll have a profitable and successful studio.
Fantastic.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's look behind the scenes into a little bit of my backstory and some of the things that we were talking about back then in 2020. And I hope you enjoyed reconnecting with Nicola and I during today's show. That's it for today's episode. Short and sweet. I'm Tim Topham, and you've been listening to the Topcast. I can't wait to connect with you again, same time next week. Bye-bye.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.